Dramatic Poetry Works. Today we got D Revolution back on the scene with an interview talking about what's happening new in his life and his new CD. Talk to us, D.
Man, my new CD, this has been the hardest project that I've had to work on. I got the first project, One Chance to Be a Man. Second project, A Simple Ghetto Life. Third project, Cause and Effect. The fourth project was called FYI, for your information. But since it's taken so long to complete that project, I've renamed the project to Mathematics, because that's where I am now, Mathematics, and that's the name of the new project that I'm working on, and I still don't have a release date for it.
Are there some of the pieces that you've already put out as in front of some of the audiences, or some of the spoken word spots?
Yeah, no, I haven't actually performed any of the pieces live that's going to be on the CD, but I put some singles out there. So one poem is called That Poetry, I brought out a while ago. I got a song with Adonaiah called Escape from America. I got a song with Matthew McCoy from Cobalt Blue. In current talks with Nova Supreme. I got a few people that's going to be on this project. It's going to be real nice.
So you are pretty much haven't put anything physically out there?
No, not yet. No, because just for a lot of personal things that's going on, I have not been able to focus 100% on the project.
So what has been going on with D Revolution this year?
You know what? Actually, taking care of my kids, hanging out with my daughters a lot more, trying to...
Kids?
Yeah, kids.
I mean, does Nashville know you have kids?
They know now.
I did get a chance to meet one of your girls. She was very beautiful. You have...
I have 3 daughters.
3 daughters?
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. I have... Look, I'm about to expose myself a little. I have a daughter that's actually, she'll be 20 in April.
Wow.
And then I have an 11 and 12-year-old daughter.
Is the one that's 20, is she into spoken word, or what is one of her...
No, right now she's just working. She's in Chicago. She lives in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
You know, I started kind of young, having, kids and everything.
What'd you do, started like 7 years old or something?
If I had to do all over again, I probably wouldn't have no kids. But,
Oh, man. Come on. It got to be the most special thing in your life.
Well, yeah, I ain't say that, but I would have did it differently.
Oh, okay. So...
I have them, and we just rule they mamas. And
it's always, There a little bit of drama going to be there. So what has been happening in your life?
Working a lot, marketing and promoting what happened to People Network. And that's really it. Just trying to, keep pushing the culture forward, the movement, spoken word, artists, working with different artists and moving things forward. Trying to mature every day, doing a little bit more writing, trying to, develop a play. I've been trying to do that for some years now. Just haven't had the patience to sit down and actually write. But working on some new poems, and that's it. Just looking to be creative at every given moment that I can.
I remember seeing a play that you were in with 3 or 4 other poets, and in that particular play, you get pretty deep in some of the subjects of your
storytellers.
The storytellers, yeah. And you get pretty deep in some of the poems you were talking about as far as your history and your life. Was there any particular story that you told with the storytellers that had the biggest impact on you?
Man, the storytellers as a whole was impactful. We're actually doing it again in a couple months. We're actually doing the storytellers again. The storytellers was just one of those situations where me being able to expose myself in front of people, I can do the poetry, but to be able to tell stories, the stories behind the poems, it was just different from anything that I've ever done. And usually I don't tell my business unless I'm on stage. So I get a chance to release uh, when I do when I did the storyteller. I got a chance to release a lot of things, and I also allow people to get to know me a little better. We had Binky on that show. We had Sean Whistle on that show, and we're going to be doing the show again.
And the storytellers, I remember there was one particular piece that you hit on that was about the life that you shared with your mother in Chicago, and the intimate details that you gave about the struggles that the two of you went through. Can you tell us some more about that, or explain maybe in more detail? Because on the stage you can only give just so much.
Well, my mom, you know, a lot of my personality I have right now is from my mom. It's a little more difficult to do it in an interview to really talk about going to depth about that situation, but my mother, she, you know, my mother did drugs and everything, and you know, and that's really the end result that a lot of people hear. I had a good mom in many different ways, and you know, a lot of things that I do now, all my hard work, hustle, I learned all of my business sense from her. You know, a lot of things that I do right now, I learned from her. But I guess at the end of the day, it was more impactful to. You know, my mother was more impactful in the situation where I had to, well, why don't you go ahead and pause that? You know what, John? I was dating this woman for a while. And when I asked her to come over to her house, she said, D-Rev, I don't feel comfortable with you coming to my house because of your past. And I said, please excuse my diction. I've lived several lives and I'm still living. Sometimes I don't give a damn what people say or think. I'm a little on edge, I've been hit with the kitchen sink.
And we're going to continue the interview with the Revolution and discussing life with his mom and himself in Chicago.
So basically, you know, the whole reason why my life changed was because my mother passed away. So when she passed away, I had to really think about what I was going to do with my life, you know, and what was my next move. I mean, it was really time to grow up. And, you know, I was in my early 20s, but, you know, but mentally I was not a grown man, you know, so I had to really make some decisions and change a lot of things about what I was doing.
You mentioned that your mother taught you pretty much all you know about business. Can we say what type of business, or was it just a sense that she had an urgency in whatever job she was doing? She was very detailed in it, or?
Well, you know, if I said on camera, my mother had different jobs that she did. I mean, my mother sold drugs when I was young, you know, and off and on throughout the time that she was alive, she sold drugs. But she also worked in the flea market every weekend. She also she delivered a Wall Street Journal. She used to drive an ice cream truck. She did a little bit of everything, you know. I mean, and there was time that she had all of these jobs at one time, you know. She would deliver the Wall Street Journal at night, drive an ice cream truck during the day, you know, but my mother was an accountant, you know, so she had a degree in accounting, and so she had a lot of business sense, but my mother never she always wanted her own business. She never wanted to work for anybody. She was just so much better at hustling and doing other things than just doing a regular 9 to 5 every day. So I picked that up. I work hard right now because I used to go with her to the flea market every weekend since I was about 6 years old. And I did that up until I was like 19. I used to be on an ice cream truck with her. I used to get up. She used to wake me up in the middle of the night to help her with the Wall Street Journals. And I had to go to school the next day. I'd get up for 2 hours in the middle of the night, go back to bed, get up and go to school the next day. So, when that's bred in you like that, a lot of people don't understand why I could be out there hustling my CDs or I do these shows and I'm always giving out a flyer. It's bred in me. It's been there. I've been trained for everything that I'm doing right now. I've been trained for this.
I used to hear that a lot of times the people who used to go to the farmers markets and places like that, you could see their skills in negotiation because they knew exactly how to talk to the sellers down and how to go through all of the peddlers until she got to the one that had the price that she want, and then she'll go ahead and.
Oh yeah. Oh man. So working in the flea market, man, you get a chance to see so many different things. Different people. Watching. My mother sold tools, like
tools.
Tools like tools you buy for a car. Your drills, so it was always men around our table all the time. So to watch her joke around with these men, and they were all surround the table, and I was a helper. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes my brother and sister would go. It was just interesting. My mother had a great personality in that aspect. Unfortunately, she had that demon she was constantly dealing with,
right.
With her addictions and everything. But my mother was a very functional addict. My mother was not somebody you would look at and say, "Oh, she's on drugs." She was a very functional addict, and I think that's what probably one of the most dangerous things to be is a functional addict, because sometimes. You don't realize how bad you're off because that self-image is that you're okay, but you're not. And then next thing you know, you're done.
Wow, I can understand. There was also another part with the this hustle thing. I had this book, I believe, was called "How to Be a Hustler" or "How to Hustle," and it was saying that if you are on the hustle in the streets, and you're bringing in 100 G's a year, and you kept that same mentality when you start doing something legal or in your business, that you could be a CEO for any corporation.
Oh yeah, some of the drug dealers out here are the best people with math. They in my neighborhood, I will watch these guys. Set up shop 2 or 3 blocks. Very good with math. Very good at very good business sense, and was very good with numbers. Except they was never allowed in corporate America. They was never allowed given that chance. So they took their sense and they did something on the streets with it. But I always say that some drug dealers. Are some of the smartest people around. The ones when you see the drug dealers with all of when they've been successful, that means that they've learned how to actively run a business. It's just not somebody as easy as somebody getting out here selling a bag. It's really somebody who learned how to run a business, except it's an illegal business. So
right.
That's absolutely correct.
Right. And once again, as you mentioned, the last thing you said was it's an illegal business. So don't in any shape, form, or fashion for us condone that we're thinking that, to be successful. No, we're just trying to make a comparison with the two, how you were able to watch some of the things in your youth growing up, how it was able to fashion you and model you to turn what you learned on the streets into a legal and profitable
it's
way to survive.
Right. It's the same rules apply. Except drugs and CDs, and same rules apply to people that I have in my inner circle. Except them being gangbangers, they're normal people. They're regular, hardworking people. So if the same rules apply, it's just a different hustle.
Were you an only child?
No, I have a brother and sister. I'm the youngest of three.
Do you get a chance to see them often, or is that?
I don't have a close relationship with my brother and sister. I hang out with my brother, but what I say that we're close brothers? No. My sister, no. Me and my brother, we can only hang out on certain levels. It's not really deep about our relationship, but we hang out on particular levels. We're just two different people. And my sister, I talk to her every blue moon, every now and then.
The last time I spoke to you, you were mentioning a lot about the type of spoken word artist that you have run across and how everyone seemed to be on a different level or a different mentality about what spoken word is and how to spit it with truth and revelation, opposed to just sound effects and how it's going to make them look good and bring them props on the street. Do you still feel that way and about that?
Yeah. I'm not sure what your question is.
Okay.
but if you want me to elaborate on spoken word, I can do that.
Well, let me just say, do you feel that the spoken word artists today, in general, are speaking about what's real, or they're just trying to sound pretty because they're just flowing because they like putting words together without any truthfulness or meat to the stories that they're telling?
Yeah, I think that a lot of spoken word artists, the spoken word artists that I see, I mean, I'm not going to say this about everyone, but most of them are not speaking for you and me to help us understand what's going on in the world, or a lot of spoken word artists are speaking for themselves. They're not, to me, when you talk about poetry, when you really talk about poets, our job as a poet is to get the information to the people in sometimes in a metaphoric way, or just, poets always should study, read. So when we get on the mic, somebody learns something. Somebody's able to relate. When I get on the mic, I could go on any corner in any neighborhood and speak, and anybody can relate to what I'm talking about. If you're a poet and you cannot do that, then you're not doing something correctly. And right now, I think a lot of poets have lost their way in terms of that aspect of really understanding what their job is as a poet.
So they should be more or less like parables that can be transformed from whatever vernacular they're using. They should be able to understand what that person's saying because of the experience that these parables are telling. Anyone who have had any kind of challenges or experiences in life should be able to relate to it.
Should be, and also they should. 50 years from now, somebody should be able to put on your poem and be able to relate to it. That gotcha. I think words are timeless. So if somebody's not able to put on your or read your poetry 50 years from now and understand it or relate to it some form or another, then you're not doing your job correctly. If you took one of my poems and you translated it in Chinese people will be able to understand it. And if you're not, if a poet is not on that level, and no one's telling, hey, nobody's telling this person, hey, I don't really know what you're talking about, or, then that's what we're left with. Because we're busy, we won't be honest, we won't hold each other accountable. We need to hold each other accountable as artists, that we have a responsibility. If you're going to see an artist, we have a that artist has a responsibility not to waste our time.
So you're a poet and a spoken word artist who doesn't do a lot of spoken word about love poems.
Not yet.
Okay.
I just let me just say that even if I did a love poem, it's not gonna be the type of love poem. It's gonna be a real love poem. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be nothing imaginary. I'm not gonna sit here and talk about walking across the moon while I massage your back. No, it's not gonna happen. It's gonna be like a real love poem, something that people can relate to. It's not gonna be a fantasy.
Gotcha. So it's going to be like not only from the heart, but from the it's going to touch your biorhythm. It's going
it's not going to be that, because that's not real. That's not real. I mean, I do think one day I will write a love poem, but I think that it still would be a little edgy. But I think that everybody would appreciate it, because it'd be a real poem about love. A real poem about a relationship, a real poem about a woman, not a poem written to get a woman, not a poem written to excite women. It'll be a real poem about love.
Okay. So let's go back to something about when you first came to Nashville, and it's unbeknownst as to why you came to Nashville, but you made it to Nashville.
Right.
And was Nashville one of the places that you chose to come to?
No, when I moved to Nashville, my brother was living here.
Okay.
I didn't come here to live. I came down here to visit. It's so much had happened in the 6 month period in Chicago that I was kind of forced to come down here for a little while.
Right.
And I ended up meeting some people, and then I ended up getting a job interview. But when I first moved here, it's funny because I had never been out the north. I had never been out of Chicago. I had never really been anywhere, so I didn't know what Kroger's was when I moved here. I didn't know what Crystal's was, because we didn't have that. So, I was expecting to see some of the same things. We didn't have a Krispy Kreme. I didn't know what that was. And I was just asking all of these questions about what's that, and my brother would say, oh, that's their version of White Castle.
It's funny that you said 3 of the 3 Ks in there all of a sudden. Was that subconsciously?
Nah, that was...
You said Kroger, Crystal, Krispy Kreme. Was it the 3 Ks?
Those are the 3 things. I know. Oh, there you go. But those are the 3 things that I noticed when I first got here, because I thought what was in Chicago was everywhere. But I didn't understand that there was different things in different regions and different environments, which metaphorically made me start looking at my life. Because when I moved to Nashville, and I started to see the black people that lived here, they lived so differently than the way I lived. So then I started to question a lot of things, and ultimately that's what made me start writing poetry.
How so were they different?
They had jobs. Most of the black people here had nice cars. Own their property, young people. I'm talking about young people. You didn't see none of that in my neighborhood. You didn't see any of that in Chicago. Now,
which part of Chicago were you speaking of?
South Side. I was from South Side Chicago.
South Side.
Inglewood.
Okay. Now, I think the only place that most Nashvilleians hear about is from the movies. Is that with Bernie Green or
Bernie Mac?
Bernie Mac was always saying about Bernie Green. Was that anywhere close?
Caprini Green.
Okay.
No, that wasn't close to me. That was like out west, west, yeah.
And that was not one of the places where anybody would want to live? Or?
No, I've only been to Cabrini Green once. I grew up in Inglewood, which, I mean, if you've been listening to the TV the last 3 years, it's the worst, the worst district in Chicago, and that's where I grew up at. And you know, I turn to WGN now, and I still see my neighborhood on TV because if something happens, Chicago had its different areas, but to me, Inglewood has suffered the most. It's just, I don't know, that neighborhood has suffered the most, and I'm just, I remember, living there. When I would see people move, I would be so jealous because I wanted to get out of there. When I would see somebody across the street moving and getting out of there, I used to be so jealous, man, because I wanted to get out of there. And so, when I finally got the chance to come to Nashville, it was probably the best thing that happened, to me, to really just, because I was still living in Inglewood before I moved here.
I know in the press now in Chicago, the media is always pointing out that that for a black male to live to be 25 is almost unheard of, or it's almost impossibility. That so many kids are getting killed in school, and so many kids black kids are getting killed, and it's so regular that it's becoming the quote norm in a negative way.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The one thing I'm skeptical. I'm always skeptical of statistics and predictions. Because once you buy into it, if they're telling you these are the statistics or they're telling you this is what the predictions, you have to be careful with that, because then you start to buy into it and just start playing that role once you buy into it. So I think it's bad, but I think I've seen it worse. I think things have actually gotten better. But it's still very bad for black men out there. It's just that sometimes you got to be careful when you watch the news, because sometimes we tend to imitate what we see on TV because we think that's what's happening. But when all the time it's the TV that's telling us what we need to do.
Okay, then let's flip that.